Okay, this is the first video that we will be having until such time the memorandum will be lifted. So we'll be working on chapter 8, the DHCP. So it will be better for you to follow me on this para kung ano when I'm going to activate the exam at least na may answer. Okay? Sige, so we will start. So basically, ang DHCP, we have different types of DHCP. No? We can put DHCP on the router or we can put it in the server. Unfortunately for us, Cisco is not a systems administration class. That's why we cannot create a server-based platform. No? So what we are going to do is we will let the router becomes the DHCP server and gives out IP addresses to all of our PC. So we are going to run through first the concepts para kasabot kita kung giunsap sa router paghatag og IP addresses ngadto sa mga PC. Okay? So everybody knows what the DHCP is. It's a dynamic host configuration protocol, no? And this dynamic host configuration protocol na sila mga procedure on how your DHCP server gives out IP addresses. So without further ado, there are two types of DHCP that we are going to tackle. One is DHCP version 4 and the other one is DHCP version 6 for the IPv6. Okay, so DHCP version 4 assigns IPv4 addresses and other network configuration information dynamically. So there is a dedicated DHCP server, but unfortunately we don't have like that. No, a Cisco router can be configured to provide DHCP version 4 service as a small network. Pareho gud sa ato ang wireless good, di ba? Ang wireless nato gives out IP addresses man to our cell phones, to our laptops, so on and so forth. So mao sa nay buhato nato sa ato ang network. Take note, daghan kaayog klase sa what they call this DHCP services, like router atong gigamitan, no? Kung router sa imong gigamit, Microtech has that one, Cisco has that one, pero I don't believe nga mo small lang siya ang gitawag, no? Kay basing on the readings, it's a small network. But it is true to the fact siguro kay sa DCIS sa atong network, I am using Microtech na server, and Microtech is the one giving out IP addresses rather than the DHCP server. Okay, ang server nako diha is not DHCP by nature, but it is a file server. So kung file server siya, all of your files will be saved on that server. Okay, I hope you get the idea. Now, how is the DHCP operate? No, there are 4 steps, no, for a client to obtain a lease. So may tag-lease ana. So these are the IP addresses that is lent to you. So if it is lent to you, basically it will not be forever, right? No. So mo-expire na siya. Ma-expire na siya on depende sa gihatag nato na specific period of time. Pwede a day, pwede a week, or pwede a month. Okay? So it depends upon the discretion of the administrator. So there are 4 processes to obtain that particular lease. Okay, so makita ninyo diri sa kaninga side, no? First is the DHCP discovers. Okay, this DHCP discover. Client uses layer 2 and layer 3 broadcast address to find the DHCP server. So basically, the client is the one asking for the DHCP. Okay, asking for that service rather than the DHCP is the one automatically gives out IP address, dili pa. So mo discover sa siya una. So upon discovering, the DHCP will offer. So the DHCP version v4 server sending a binding DHCP offer message to the requesting client as unicast. Then afterwards, the DHCP request. So the client sends back the broadcast DHCP request in response to the server it offers. So basically, nag-communicate pa sila, hey, I want to naabay DHCP diya. So if there is, na ay nag-offer. Okay? Because this is not the only server that you have. There are so many. So, depende na siya kung unsa nga klase server ang motubag. Makita na ninyo later sa ato ang what we call this packet tracer nga buhaton kung if this router here becomes the DHCP, so it will give out IP address here and here. So therefore there are two networks present here. Okay? Sige. So going back, oops, here. Okay. So until such time, balik. Until such time, after the request, the DHCP server acknowledges it and give a reply to the client using the DHCP Act. Okay, that is the acknowledgement. So there are 4 steps to do that. So mao na siya ang kwan until such time the client receives the intended IP address for it. Okay, so get further. So these are the message format nga gigamit, no? Although this is not that very important to you, but being a computer science or an IT, you should know this. No? So unsay sulod? Actually, this is a UDP protocol. No, dili siya TCP. Kaya TCP we will need handshake to do that. No, kinanglan kani siya, the other side should be there. No? Kaya kung wala to siya, walay server nga motubag, so therefore it really cannot give out IP addresses. Correct? So kung UDP siya, there are 2 types of protocol naman, TCP and UDP. So kung TCP siya, pasabot na whether you are there or not, you can still receive the message. But in this case, UDP, in the user datagram protocol, kinanglan you should be there. Okay, somebody should be there. That's why we call it as naantoy term na to, connection oriented and connectionless. So therefore kung connectionless siya, gagamit TCP, and if it is connection oriented, gagamit kita og UDP. Okay, and there's a specific port on which asa dapita moagi ang DHCP nimo, and that is the source port of 67 and destination port of 68. Okay, sige. So this is how the discovery and offer messages are being sent to and from the DHCP. Okay, kabalo naman kita ani. Okay, this is very understandable. All you have to do is to read. Okay. So this is how we configure a basic server configuration in our router. So the first thing is, number 1, exclude the IP addresses that you don't need to give out to your intended clients. You can do that by giving the command IP DHCP exclude address from 192 from 10.1 until 10.9. So meaning there are this is the range now of IP addresses that you don't need to give out to your client. Then you can also exclude an IP address individually, like for example 192.160.10.24. So this is an individual PC and this is the range. Then afterwards, all you have to do is to give also IP DHCP pool LAN pool 1. So meaning this LAN pool 1 is the name of the DHCP pool that we need to create. So meaning this differs. This is a variable. Okay. So you can change this one more often until such time you can it's up to you as an administrator. Okay. The next thing is, once you give the LAN pool, automatically you go inside that LAN pool. That's the time that you are going to input your network. So take note, if this is subnetted, make sure that the network is correctly given and also its subnet mask. This is one of the most important thing, the default router. So the default router, this is your gateway actually. Okay, if you have the router with you, the gateway there is your default router. You get the idea? So basically, we put that in G00 or G01. So whatever port it is intended for your local area network. Okay. Then the next thing that you're going to do, you put a DNS server. Remember the classic server that we are using. There is a DNS server there. Okay, DNS name, so on and so forth. So you have to put the DNS IP address and the domain name that you are using. Let's say, for example, www.google.com, so on and so forth. Okay. then you end. So these are the following commands that you are going to put on your router in order for you to input or to create a DHCP. Okay, so more. So if you want to verify the DHCP, all you have to do is to give the command show running config, pipeline, then section DHCP. So basically on that particular show running config, the section DHCP is only to be shown in this command here. That's why what you can see is only the configuration of your DHCP. Take note, you can have 2 or more DHCP in this example. Excuse me. Like for example, one is 10.0 network and the other one is the 11.0 network. So meaning you have 2 sections, like say this one is placed at G01 and this one is placed at G00. Or you can also put it in another router. And basically I'll give you an example to do that later. Then the other example of verification is show IP DHCP binding. So in this point, now you can see the 2 IP addresses that it is the 2 network addresses intended for that particular IP pool. Okay. I'm sorry, excuse me. Next. Okay. So this is the DHCP relay. DHCP discover messages sent to broadcast. So this PC here will look for the DHCP here. So if the DHCP is placed here, then it's okay, no problem, because it is directly connected to that particular port. But if it is placed in here, so make sure that this line here should be what? With the protocol, right? Okay, I say EIGRP or IP or SPF. Same is true here. So if this is a DHCP intended for this one, then that's no problem. Therefore, you are not going to put a DHCP intended for this one, right? Sige. Now, if this IP address, let's say for example, if this is your router, this is the router here, that is the DHCP, basically it cannot give IP addresses here. So in this instance, at G00, all you have to do is to put the IP helper address pointing to that particular router or pointing to that particular port. Or if you want this PC would like to ask an IP address from the DHCP where these are not the DHCP, this is the only DHCP that you have. Therefore, use an IP helper address in order for you to point it to that particular server. So that way, the server would like to give out IP addresses to this segment here. Okay. So later we are going to give the command out. Let's try. So I will be activating some of the exercises, and you are going to answer them. Okay. As for now, the DHCP 4 SATA, and later I will be uploading also the DHCP 6. Okay. So I guess if you have any question, you can point it out only. Ibutang sa parang question itong sa ato ang GC para makuha na ko kung saan ako pagtubag. Okay. So thank you, and I hope you get the idea of the DHCP.